This document is coming straight from Congress, and it explains exactly everything that's happening to our nation. It explains why America is no longer the country you and I grew up in. I mean, do we even recognize America anymore?
No, to be honest, I don't.
Most Americans feel there's something wrong, but very few truly understand what's happening. And that's why I'm here today. Everything that's wrong with America today can be explained by this document. The runaway inflation that's waterboarding the middle class. Widespread corruption we normally only see in third world banana republics. The extreme level of political division in our country. The open border, rising crime rates, the woke culture, big tech censorship, our weakened military, and basically everything that makes you think that America has gone off the rails. That can all be traced back to this document because it details an evil plan to destroy America from within. In the last couple of years, not a single good thing has happened to America. Nobody can be that incompetent. I believe this is all part of a plan that has been decades in the making. A plan to weaken America and replace our free society with an authoritarian state. And it's now finally reaching its final stage, which will be the most violent and chaotic. Nobody ever thought this could happen in America, but it has. Under the disguise of various names and organizations, the dangerous idea behind this document has infiltrated every major institution in America. I'm talking about Wall Street, universities and schools, the medical establishment, corporations, popular entertainment, our military, Congress, our judicial system, the Department of Justice and the FBI, and the highest ranks of our own government, including the White House. I believe they're all playing a role, yes. I know this sounds alarmist, but I'm not the only one who's connected the dots. New York Times bestselling author and constitutional lawyer Mark Levin says, this plan has now reached its pinnacle. It's a war on your lifestyle, a war on your income, a war on your private property, a war on capitalism. We won't believe that it's taking place, but it is. It's here and now, and it's in our face. Kevin Freeman, who's considered one of the world's leading experts on economic warfare, says, the crises now facing America are happening according to plan. Decades in the making, it's a plan to take down the greatest obstacle to totalitarianism the world has ever known, the United States. And the Federalist warns, if we don't stop it, this plan will annihilate the American way of life.
Wow, that's terrifying. So how do we stop this plan?
Unfortunately, there's no way to stop it. This is a terminal illness that has spread throughout our entire body. It's too late now.
But Jim, if it's too late and there's no way to reverse the situation, are you saying we're all doomed?
Our republic is doomed, but there's still time for us to prepare for the coming chaos. Look, Doug, I love our country, and I truly hope I'm wrong about everything I'm going to tell you today. But as a former advisor to the CIA and Pentagon, I simply can't bury my head in the sand and ignore all the facts. So today I'm going to show you all the proof I've gathered, including this congressional document. Then you can make up your own mind. Now, before I move on, I need to make something very clear. This is not a political message. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. You need to prepare now because we're entering the last phase of their plan, where we'll see the complete deconstruction of the American way of life from top to bottom. The inflation we've seen so far is nothing compared to what's coming. The stock market already started to crash, but we're nowhere near the bottom. In the coming months, I believe we'll see the worst crash of our lifetime. By the time all is said and done, stocks could be down 80% or even 90%.
So you're talking about market collapse?
Yes. Famous investor Michael Burry, who correctly predicted the 2008 housing meltdown, said this could be worse than 2008. And it gets much worse. Because as I'll explain here today, I believe once they start implementing the last phase of their plan, you might lose access to your bank account, your credit card, your life savings, and your retirement benefits, including Social Security, all just because of your political views.
You mean I'll be unable to take cash from my own bank account?
That's exactly what I mean. You see, this isn't just about money and your financial future. This is about your God-given rights and your freedom. And that's what really scares me. Soon you could lose some of your most sacred constitutional rights, like the freedom of speech and freedom to bear arms. You could lose access to health care. You could lose access to the internet. Your kids and grandkids could lose access to schools. And you could lose your freedom to travel and go to certain restaurants.
Come on, Jim. With all due respect, this sounds a bit crazy. There's no way this can happen in America.
I know this sounds crazy, but let me ask you this, Doug. Just a few years ago, if I had told you the White House would publicly declare that 75 million Americans are, and I quote, an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights, wouldn't you have called me crazy?
Yes, I guess I would. I don't think any of us could have predicted that, though.
What if I told you that the FBI would tell federal law enforcement that the use of patriotic American symbols is evidence of domestic terrorism? I bet you'd have called me crazy, right?
Right.
Just a few years ago, if I had told you that instead of focusing more on training for war, our military would be training on how to be more inclusive and learn new gender pronouns, wouldn't you have called me crazy?
Yes, I guess I would.
Doug, if I had told you that academics at the highest levels of our education system would not be able to define what a woman is, you'd have called me crazy too. If I had told you that our government would help create the highest inflation in 40 years and then would spend even more money as a solution, you'd call me crazy. And if I had told you that young school children would be separated in public schools because of their race, and that we would call that progress instead of segregation, you'd have called me crazy too, because that's exactly what's happening in America today. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how every single one of those things is connected to this document. And I'll explain why I believe this is all part of this decades-long plan to destroy our republic.
Hold on, Jim. Those things you just mentioned, that's some of the stuff that makes me think we've all lost our minds. Clearly, something has gone terribly wrong with our country. And you're saying this congressional document explains all of it?
Yes, none of those things is happening by accident. I'm going to explain everything today. I'm going to name names and expose the global elite's plan to destroy our nation from within, all in the name of wealth and complete power. More importantly, I'm going to show you the 5 steps I recommend everyday folks take right now. These are the same steps I've taken to protect myself and my family from the coming chaos. I'll even tell you where I already invested $1 million of my own money and share one single move that you can make to opt out of their evil plan. I've been around long enough to know that the truth is the most important thing, so I'm not the least bit worried about being censored, and I truly love my country. I have grandkids, and I'm really worried about the country we're going to leave them. So after I uncovered this document and connected all the dots, I couldn't stay silent. I feel like it's my duty to warn my fellow Americans about what's coming. And look, I know that this idea that we're on the verge of losing our republic is hard to believe, but I built my career predicting events that most people thought were unthinkable.
Yeah, I know you predicted the 2008 global financial crisis, right?
Right, but when I predicted that collapse, do you think anyone believed me? No, they didn't. In the summer of 2008, I wrote this letter to top advisors in the presidential campaign saying, we can expect another panic spike in October 2008. This financial crisis is not over.
And nobody believed you.
Unfortunately, everyone in Washington thought such a systemic collapse was impossible. But 3 weeks later, Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. Panic took over. Markets crashed around the world, ruining the retirements of millions. An estimated $2 trillion disappeared almost overnight from Americans' 401ks and IRAs. 8.7 million people lost their jobs, and nearly 10 million lost their homes in the United States alone. In each of those predictions, most people didn't believe me. They thought I was crazy.
And yet the events unfolded exactly like you predicted.
They did. And the problem is, by the time people realized I was right, it was already too late to prepare. So I'm going to ask everyone watching this, please don't make that mistake today, because the stakes here couldn't be any higher. As I describe what's happening to America, you'll think this is some kind of conspiracy theory. But as I like to say, the real world is far scarier than any conspiracy theory. So I'm going to show you all the proof I've gathered, including this congressional document. Then you can decide for yourself if I'm just blowing smoke. As for me, I already started to prepare because I believe we're on the verge of a new American revolution.
A new American revolution? What do you mean?
Well, as you know, in 1776, we fought a revolution here in America. Until that year, old world Europe believed that a small group of enlightened elites should decide what's best for society. Americans didn't agree with that. Instead, we had a revolutionary idea that citizens would engage in self-governance where everyone's voices would count equally. It was that experiment that created the greatest nation the world has ever seen. Unfortunately, the plan described by this document is driving us back to that old model, where a small group of elites get to decide how you live your life.
So what exactly is this plan you're talking about?
You see, global elites have been planning a Marxist takeover of America for decades now, all in the name of money and power. As you know, Marxism is the idea that we must abolish capitalism and redistribute wealth in order to achieve a perfect and equal society. And the only way to do that is by giving complete power to the state.
And this plan is coming from Congress?
Well, here's what happened. In 1958, the book The Naked Communists listed 45 goals of the communist agenda. If they want to take over America, all they had to do was implement those 45 steps. This was so important that it was even recorded in Congress. So what I'm holding in my hand is their plan with 45 goals that's now part of the congressional record.